I have a ready-built puzzle in my head which I need to transform into real world. I was a little kid when I started building a library of my own. It's mostly just watching and looking at people behaving, looking at them move. There's always something that catches my eye, be that movement or eyebrow or some facial gesture, hand gesture, how people walk. Basically stare, and when I hear the piece appearing in my mind, it's a complete piece. And what I do next is basically I assemble that puzzle backwards. On my hard disks there are quite a lot of really strange stuff that I've been recording during the last 31 years actually. So I was a little kid when I started building a library of my own. You have to have basic knowledge, but you have to forget it in order to recreate something new. It helps to have a basic knowledge of how the instruments work and how the harmonies work and things like that, but it's not necessary because people without any musical upbringing, they have managed to create quite unbelievably great soundtracks lately. And I'm not actually exactly sure what has been Trent Reznor's past. I think he was a classically trained keyboard player in the first place, but his departure from so-called classical style has been probably something that I think what he does now is free from most rules that he learned back in the day, and that's a good example. In gaming music at least, the trendsetters are more or less in the movie score field. That's something that I'm quite sure of. But as such, there was a long run where people were making these scores where everything was playing at once, and plus a choir, plus war elephant drums, and then there was a 15-story high war god appearing from the grounds, that sort of thing. Everybody kept doing that for a while, and then there was a phase where everybody kept doing the Bambi on ice style thing, lots of embellishments and not that much musical content really. It was just, they were just orchestration demos really. But nowadays it seems that the real trendsetters are the hardcore movie composers, and with hardcore I'm referring to for like Trent Reznor or Hans Zimmer or things like that. And there was a plague, so-called Zimmer plague, circling around a while ago. Every game developer wanted to have the epic Zimmer scores, Gladiator stuff, things like that. But when he changed his style towards more like, I think they are more episodic pieces, or rather, he basically reinvented himself during a few movie projects he was involved for. I've been using Interstellar as a good example here. That was something little un-Zimmerish at that time. I think what people should listen to are actually the independent movie composers of small productions. That's where the fresh air is nowadays. It's not in Hollywood. If you're breathing the Hollywood air, you're breathing used air. You should find something new. And the pollution level is that high in the States right now that wouldn't be the right place to take your gasp. When I finished Alan Wake, I sort of fell into what's known as a post-production depression. When you've been involved with a long project and it suddenly ends, you feel the emptiness. You keep on thinking, oh, that could have been done so much better, and those errors there and things like that. And it was quite a miserable phase of my time, approximately 3 to 4 months actually. And I decided when Quantum Break was about to end that I need to somehow try to avoid that. So I started working on an album that was first called Soundtrack for a Movie That Never Was, but it later on became something else. But I had written for Quantum Break 10 tracks. 9 of those were used in the game as such, and the 10th one was quite a long time. It was supposed to be the title track of the game, but since the plans changed, they decided that it was too rich harmonically and melodically, so we ditched that. I basically shelved it, but I didn't throw it away. Instead, I stored it in a folder which back at that time had a name album ? So it was there for a long time, and some of the tracks on that album were already done in 1997, and there were quite a few done in 2004, 2007, 2010. So it's a combination of tracks, and right in the middle of the production of it, the style started to change towards trance, because I've got my backgrounds with Club Unity, and I've done joint productions with DJ Orchidea and remixes for Solar Stone and Armin van Buuren, for instance. But yeah, 13 tracks have been made, and they are being released through Black Hole Records somewhere early next year. The album has been ready for at least a year now. The first single was released in, was it July? Can't remember exactly. The Other Side was the song called, and right now there are 2 singles in the row that probably are going to appear, I'm not sure, during the December for the second one, but the third one is coming right before the album itself. The single is right now in iTunes and in Tidal and in Spotify as well. If you search for Lowland, and the song is called The Other Side, then you can find the first single. And probably the same place is where you can find the album when it comes out, or the sequel singles. I'd like to combine those two, way or another. I'm not willing to share myself into pieces. I'd like to see that whole thing as a whole. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll compose a few pop songs as well, which I did back in the 90s, but let's see what happens. But yes, and of course I'm always looking for the right movie or TV series project, but that's another thing. There are too many makers on that field. Maybe better than me even. Maybe.